Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here. My guest today is very unapologetically rebellious, Krystal Grichen. Welcome to my channel.
Thank you for having me.
Well, before we go into the whole rebellious side of you, tell me a little bit your backstory. Like, how did you even discover crafting?
Sure, yeah. I'm from Alberta, Canada, and I'm in my 40s. So I, like most of us here, was taught by my grandma and my mom and my aunts. And we dabbled. We didn't really like. My mom was like a crafter, I say. So we tried a little bit of everything. When the painting was a fad and the ceramics was a fad and macrame. So I did grow up with it. Yeah, so that's how I got started with that. And then how I really got back into it is I was like in my late 30s, my kiddo had grown, and like most moms, I was like, oh, I need some friends and I need something to do. And so my mom, was always more crafty, really wanted to learn how to knit socks. And she'd watch some YouTube videos, but she's like, we got to find a group. We got to go find someone to show me this stuff. And it was kind of before YouTube had really blown up, and there's everything on there now. So we sort of got with some friends and started like a local knit night. And that went on for years. And then from that, sort of the Yarn Rebels was born.
Well, what inspired you to start Yarn Rebels? I mean, it's one thing to just have a neat night, but there was a
Yeah.
behind it.
So for sure. So I turned 40, and I've always I've had a few different careers in my life that have sort of changed with the seasons of my life. So I started out as in nursing as a healthcare aide. Then I had my kiddo, so I was a stay-at-home mom and did all the like PTA and all that kind of stuff. And then I went back to school and became an EA, and I was teaching play school, and I loved it. I loved the littles. But on the side of that, we had this knit group going, and we would be going out to the local yarn festivals and then meeting up. And mom always wanted to go. She likes to shop. So I'd be like, yeah, where are we going for lunch? What brewer are we checking out or whatever? So that was the trade off. So then that sort of just started. We started doing that behind the scenes while I was teaching. And then I turned 40 and I have some health issues. And so I thought, okay, maybe I could give this Yarn Rebels thing a real shot. But the real inspiration was that during the pandemic, the fiber industry, like most, was very like divided, right? So there was a lot of hate, there was a lot of anger, and I was like, oh, I ain't about that. So I always had felt like a black sheep, even when we had gone to the yarn festivals, because I am myself. I am loud and unapologetic. So but I would always take my knitting with me to the local breweries that I would go with my husband, and people would always come out to me and chat. And I was like, we're out there. This group of sort of loud, rebel-ish type crafters are out there. And they are. So I thought, well, let's see if we can make a home for them. Let's see if we can give them a voice.
Well, I was just recently at HH Americas, and there was the first day of it was Creator Summit, and one of the panels there was basically like this meetup for store owners, the yarn dyers, and designers. And one of the store owners said something about like a particular customer complaining about something. And then this designer who was sitting next to me said, well, she's just not your people. Was it difficult to find your people? And also, does that bring extra divisiveness? Because while you're finding your people, are you alienating others?
Yeah, it's true. Yes, it did definitely take me a while. So that first knit group at before the pandemic had grown to like 30 people. And we met every Tuesday and it was awesome. But inside that, you could see the pockets of the groups, right? And so we were sort of naturally like finding our people inside the group anyway. But I did always find like there was people like me, but I find that lots of times loud or unapologetic people, we're looked at a certain way. So shamed is like one of the words that I always feel. It's like, oh, if I come in and I'm the loudest, like people look at you and stuff. So I think we glommed onto each other because we were all the same. So that helped. And what I've said is that you don't have, I talk about my quiet rebels. I have a lot of rebels that aren't loud. They're very quiet, but they are very strong, opinionated, and have, all of the sort of support local and all the rebel values. So being a rebel doesn't mean being loud, or being a yarn rebel doesn't mean being loud. It means being authentically yourself, whatever that looks like. And that's what I always try to put forward, is that you come to our group and you are accepted absolutely no matter what. We're multi-craftual, we're multicolored, we're multiracial, we are multi-aged. It doesn't matter.
Right.
So that has been great. Now, that being said, just like with every industry, you have to find your people. And along the journey, there's definitely some people that have, we've not been the same, or we haven't had the same views, or they just don't jive with us. And that's awesome, because to be honest, for the first 10 years, I felt like I was an outsider at their party, and now they're an outsider at my party. But my idea is that you're not an outsider. We can all work together. But I just couldn't find a place that I felt like a safe space. And, they would all talk about going to knit night and it being a safe space. And I was like, except if I'm loud, or in case I say the wrong thing. And so I never really felt that way. So I had to sort of just create it myself. And that's where we're at.
Right. And I think there is something to that concept that maybe not every need group is for absolutely everyone, that you have to find your own community that you find comfortable and you find inclusive and you find that vibes with you. So maybe that's exactly what you've done.
That's my hope, is that I just wanted to be able to create a place. To be honest, I joke about it all the time, but like at the end of the day, I'm doing this for myself and my mom and my group of friends, because we're going out and we're doing the things, and we've picked up all these awesome people along the way, and we've grown in that way. So it's been some of my newest, greatest friends and long-term friends are part of the Yarn Rebels, and that's exactly what I wanted.
Well, another discussion that happened at HH Americas in the same exact meetup was that every time we put a sign on the knitting store, on the yarn store, that says something like crocheters welcome, it actually makes crocheters really mad, because it's the same thing as to put women welcome on the pub, right? And you are very careful about that, because you wrote to me that it's Knit Nights for Unconventional Makers, which makes it inclusive. Do you find that meeting other crafters who might not necessarily do what you prefer to do is a source of inspiration for everyone?
It is. So actually just this year, the Yarn Rebels has changed and grown, because truthfully, when I started it, I didn't know what it would be, or I just knew it was something special, but I was like, I don't know where we're going. Who wants to come along for the ride? And it has changed a little bit. And so it started out with us just doing these sort of one-off workshops of unique things. And then I launched the retreat part of it. But in 2025, I've launched Craft Coalition. So I am a knitter and a crocheter, but I like to paint. I do a lot of other crafts. So for me, this year, I was like, I got to get back to my crafting roots. And Edmonton, where I live, like close where I live, we have such a fantastic local arts and craft scene. Weavers, embroidery, cross stitch, everything you would want, you can find here. And so I'm really inspired to have these new opportunities that are multi-craftual, and because I also say nobody does one craft.
Tell me a little bit more about Rebel Heart retreats, because that sounds really interesting to me.
Yeah, so then I thought to myself, okay, some of our group of friends would go away on retreats, or mom and I would go away for a weekend, and you just sometimes need a little reset. And in the knitting industry and the knitting crochet in Canada, there's a few retreats that are available, but they're very, very expensive. I mean, very expensive is relative, but in the $2,000 to $3,000 range for a weekend away. And that was never in a budget for me. So years ago, I had a girlfriend who did scrapbooking retreats, and her goal was always to keep it affordable, keep it chill, and just a getaway. So then she had a baby and had to step away, and she's been harping, well, why don't you do retreats? You do retreats. And the Yarn Rebels was coming along, and I was like, okay, let's try. So we started last October. We had our first one, and then we just had another one in May. And we have another one coming up in October. And so I say, if you have been out to an event with us or hung out with us at a knit night or a chapter or any sort of things, you will love the retreat, because it's the same thing.
Well, is there some structure to that retreat, or it's completely unruly and rebellious?
There is. That's the other thing I got feedback on was that a lot of my friends that had gone to retreats, they were like, "Oh, well, it's so scheduled, and we come in on this time, and this and this and this," and I that's not relaxing to me, and I ain't about that. So we do on Friday night, we have what's called a wellness hour. I also called it that because I love health and wellness. And so being able to feature, a Bath and Body Works company, or, we had a local Moon and Lotus, they taught us about, like, we did a hand cleansing ceremony. I always want it to be, maybe it's going to be yoga, maybe it's going to be Reiki, whatever it is that time. I wanted it to be a wellness focus instead of a craft focus. So it gives us an opportunity to like kick the weekend off feeling good. Um, that's Tommy Lee.
We're gonna have some feline visitors
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. So then, and on Saturday, usually we have an optional workshop in the morning that is sometimes included, sometimes there's an additional fee. And then the afternoon, we just have happy hour and what I call the FO parade, which is kind of fun because I was never a fast maker. I'm not a fast maker. So when I started my newsletter, I was like, I need some content. So I called up my friends and I was like, send me pictures of your crap, please, so I can feature it. And it's just a fun little way to show off what you're working on because nobody can appreciate the effort and the time of that beautiful cabled sweater that you made better than us.
For sure.
So we just sit around and we just have happy hour. So that's the entire structure of the weekend. That's it.
Tell me a little bit about the Craft Coalition and how that was born and what's your vision for it?
So when I started doing this and I was like, okay, how can I make it sustainable for me? So luckily we hit the ground running and 23 and 24 were really great, awesome, big years for us. We had events every month and we went to lots of places across Alberta, but I'm still a mom. I have a 16-year-old and I'm still a wife. And so it was a little much. So my idea with Craft Coalition was twofold. I was going to try and streamline it. So one event a month, pre-planned, pre-arranged to take a little of the burnout off of me. And the other thing is that I'm a big learner. I love to learn and I love to teach. So being able to, partner up with these local organizations and introduce them to us and introduce us to them was my inspiration. So for example, in June, we're going to a local alpaca farm in the morning and having a tour and a little shopping. And then we're going to go for a lunch and have a local organization called Focus on Fiber Arts, who are kind of our guild boss, sort of, if all the guilds fall underneath that. They're going to come and tell us about their organization. So it's just an opportunity every month that I'm running it to go somewhere new, try something new, or learn something new.
Are you ever afraid that you're gonna run out of places to go to or things to do?
I would say yes, but Alberta and Edmonton is so fantastic, and we have so many coffee shops. And another reason, big thing with Craft Coalition is I love to support local, so I never wanted to make one place our home. That's always sort of been that's what the Yarn Rebels are about. We bop around. We have rebels from all over Central Alberta. Sometimes we're on your side of the town, and we'll come to you, and vice versa. So I have lots of friends in the brewery industry. Our brewery scene is very big here. We have tons of locally owned coffee shops. We have lots of local small halls for rent. So I'm not. It has been a little challenging finding spots, but um, I'm not too worried about that. As for the inspiration for the crafts, when I get hung up on something, I call a friend. I Jolene was just our main. I'm not sure if you know Jolene. Jolene knits a lot. She's like a local teacher and a podcaster. So she taught us how to measure ourselves. And we got up close and personal with our bodies to see see what we're like. So, I have friends who sometimes, especially now that Craft Coalition's sort of rolling, I'm getting a few people saying, well, what about this idea? Or what about this idea? So we're a very collaborative uh community, I find, in general, right?
Well, how would those collaborations change the whole Yarn Rebels basically? Like how do you benefit from it and how do they benefit from collaborating with you?
Right. So for the first few years, I was treating it as a business, but not as like we got to get serious about business here. So with the Craft Coalition, it's a partnership option. So I offer them the 20 of us that are going to come to their store or their farm or whatever. So they get the exposure, and then in exchange, they buy in for a very low fee, literally just to for commitment. So for example, in the fall, we're going to have a local resin clay polymer girl that I love, and she's been out at the retreats with me, and we're going to have an earring bar for Halloween, and she's going to talk to us about her small business and why she does it, and just things like that. So the community is what the benefit is, I guess. That's what we both I feel like both sides of it is like we get the community out of it, and it's not about the sales necessarily. Sometimes people buy, sometimes people don't. But in the future, it's like, oh, I want a pair of earrings. I'm going to call up Ashley from Lazy Pine.
Well, when you started, it was you and your mom just rebelling along. How did it grow from that point? Like, how many rebels are we talking about?
Well, so it's kind of fun. I have and it depends, right? Because we're growing a little bit outside of our local area now. So when it started, I was working alongside of the local fiber festival, and I got a newsletter going because I was like, well, that's at least one way to connect with my community to start. So I have 500 people on my 500 Rebels read my newsletter monthly-ish. And then last year in 2024, we were nominated because our community is so amazing for 3 awards through the community votes. And so we were nominated for event planning, community group, and community organization, I think. So we won all those. So that was all voted on by our community, which was really fantastic. I joined Women in Business in my local community, and I worked alongside them for 2024 as well, because women in business is really important to me, obviously, and small business. So I do hustle. I'm a hard worker, and I'm trying. So
Do you see this like as a business? Do you think about business plan now? I know when you started, you said you didn't have any idea where it's going to grow, but like now that you've done it for a number of years, are you thinking of it as a business?
I am, and that's why Craft Coalition looks a little bit different, because I used to have it in the years before, we would have chapters, so people would be able to it was free meetups, and I'm still doing free, what we're calling free meetups. I did one in February. In June, we're having a parking lot party, but I did have to make the shift to what I'm calling Craft Coalition for financial reasons, because we have the price of things, like there's cost associated for the tour, for example, so I can't take on all those costs. So with the Craft Coalition, I have a really great mentor friend who also has been up my behind, and I do have a business plan, and I am trying, reading business books, and yeah, I'm trying.
Does it take the joy out of just being a rebel?
For me, no, because when I get to go to the events, or when I have something where we're like a craft coalition, the joy that I get from those events, and being able, like, someone has to be the organizer, right? Everybody, I want to go to a retreat, but if no one's putting on retreats that I can afford or want to go to, well then maybe it should be me. So I find joy in planning. I always said since I was a child, if I could grow up to be anything, I'd probably want to be an event planner. So this is sort of that. And I get to hang out with my mom, like you mentioned. We have a very great relationship. And as long as she wants to travel around and do this with me, then I'll do it with her.
How did you end up on the stage with Garth Brooks?
Oh, okay, that's a funny story. So, yeah, he was here. We're a big music province, and I'm one of the huge parts of me is music. I have grown up loving music and singing in choir and the odd things. So, Garth was here, and he was doing his like stint of 8 shows or whatever. So, we had tickets for the final night. Great tickets, really excited, but my mom was gifted some better tickets for another night. So she went ahead and went to that show. And she said, "Oh, you girls, you got to make yourself up some posters." He, at the end of the show, he goes around and he looks at the posters and chooses some songs to sing because he has so many. So, oh, yeah, okay, we'll do that, no problem. So off we go to the concert. We're walking around with our posters, and we ended up going on the wrong. Ended up on the level 2, and we had to go down. But I was like, "Oh, it's fine. We'll just get our beer here and we'll sort ourselves out." And a lady came up to us and asked us about our posters and offered us third row spot. So I was like, that was it. We were tickled. Okay, of course, great, let's go. So we go down, get ourselves settled. The lady was like, third row, here you go. Enjoyed the show. It was fantastic. So towards the end, of course, he says, hold up your posters. And when we had met the lady upstairs, she asked about the poster because they all say, his hit songs that they want to sing. But I had written on my poster a song called It's Your Song, which I had sang at my grad. So it was obviously special to me. So he says, Lee looks at my poster and he said, why do you want that song? And I said, oh, well, it's special. I sang it at my grad. He goes, you sang it at your grad? And I said, yeah. And then he goes like this. I was like, no, no, no. So up I went. And all I kept thinking in my head is, don't mess up. Don't embarrass yourself. Don't embarrass Edmonton. And he smells fantastic, which was very strange because he had played his 2-hour show. And then I got to sing with him. And then Trisha came out and I sang with her as well.
That's amazing. That's a great story.
It's just like a once in a lifetime,
That's probably
it.
one spot where it's actually really good if you're the loudest one.
And you know what I heard from that? And like these little experiences have sort of spurred me to be who I am because people say, I would never have done that. If he would have went like this, I would have said no. And I was like, you're going to say no when Garth asked you to come sing on stage. But a lot of my friends were like, I know I couldn't. I know I would not be able to. And they were just like in awe that I was like, well, you got to do it. What are you going to do?
Well, do you
So
feel like the older we get, the more um, edgy and like
unapologetic,
unapologetic? Yeah.
right? Life is short, and I've had a wonderful life, but I've had a lot of tragedy in my life and I've had a lot of loss. And so when I turned 40, and after the pandemic and everything, I was just like, I'm not, teaching was wonderful and it filled me with joy, but it was a very physical job. And I have fibromyalgia, so I have to manage my spoons, and it was just very hard on me. And with Yarn Rebels, it gives me the ability to plan things when I want to plan them and decide on how much I want to commit to it this week. So just having that, and also just being 40 and being like, you know what? I love this craft group that I have, but I haven't found like it doesn't feel right yet. And I was like, maybe I'll just try and do it.
And I think it's also like it's very freeing to do things your way and see who is gonna come along with your journey on your journey.
Yeah. And I mean, as long as I'm doing it for myself, like I said, for me and mom and my friends, then whoever wants to come along is more than welcome. And if they don't want to, I think one thing that happens in our industry or in this industry is like we have a problem. We say we're inclusive, but we're only really inclusive if you believe or if we're of the same. Where in most other industries, it's like you do you, and I'll do me, and we'll still have beer and we'll be totally cool. But I find in our industry, it's like, oh no, you do us or you're against us. And so part of the rebel part of me does want to balk the system a little bit. I can't deny that I am trying to find a voice because I did feel silenced. Like I do feel like we're not always well represented. And to be honest, there's a lot of us out there.
Well, talking of representation, there is also a bunch of guys out there who are wonderful makers. Are you welcoming everybody, like including men? Are there men
Yeah.
rebels?
We don't, there are men rebels. I don't know of a lot of men in our local area, but the men that are here are rebels. They come to events, and I had one of the fun ones we do is called soap and suds. So you get to make felted soap and then you try the beer or try the spirits. And I always tout it as a date night, and I've had some friends bring dates because it's something to do, it's something fun, and yeah, why not? So
Let's talk about your significant other. So I've heard you have a separate Instagram account called
yeah.
Then Divorce.
Yeah, so my husband and I, we're not quite high school sweethearts, but we met in our early 19th, 20s. And so we were together for 5 years and then we got married. So we're coming up on our 20-year anniversary. And during the pandemic, we have a 16-year-old daughter, but she was 14, 13. Well, to be honest, it actually started before that. She started choir, and the choir was on Tuesday nights, and we were like, okay, well, it's a 1.5 hour choir. What are we gonna do? So we found a local pub that had a cheap happy hour with a bunch of craft beer on, and then we would go and we would just sit, drink a beer, wait for her to finish choir, and connect. And he used to work out of town, so date night has always been key in our marriage to help us stay connected. During the pandemic, we kind of were lonely and didn't get to go out anywhere and see anybody. So we're like, oh, hey, let's make an Instagram so we could see our friends. And yeah, so it's just a little page that we have on the side. We like to support, like I said, all the local breweries. And honestly, having that page and those connections has definitely helped me with the Yarn Rebels, because the craft, if I need a space to host a craft, I just have to call a friend, and, it works out beautifully. They have a quiet Wednesday night and I have a rowdy group of girls.
Well, I'm predominantly knitter, and you can see and I emphasize some of my yarn stash behind me there. You are multi-crafter. How does your crafting stash looks like?
Yeah, that's a bit of the problem, because when you know yourself, like when you get into it, then it's like now you're into quilting and whatever. So I am more, mom always says there's a process or a product knitter or a product person, and I'm a product person. So I will buy one paint by number, paint my paint by number, and be done. I'll buy my yarn for my project. So I live in a small home with my husband and kiddo, so I do try to manage that. Um, I love kits. You know how like everybody has kits now, right? For all the crafts. So you buy a little kit, has everything you need in it, done.
How do you keep authentic while you're applying, like talking to a much wider audience? Like, is it hard? Does it change you as a person when you think that it's not just my mom and my two friends? It's like, I don't know who is watching me. Does that influence you?
It doesn't, because if I let it, then it would take away the authenticity of who I am, and what I say I am. So and what I always hope too is like, because I like music so much, I kind of use this comparison. If I pay to come and see a band on stage, I don't want to have a tape experience. I want to have a concert experience. So I always hope that if you see me online or you have watched anything of mine, you're like, oh, this is who she is. And then you meet me and this is who she is. I don't want to pretend I'm something I'm not. I've never been good at that. And that's why I've always been in trouble for being the loudest and the whatever. Every report card said, Krystal chats too much.
How did this industry and this community changed you as a person?
To be honest, I think it pushed me to be who I really am, because I have always been this way, but in certain parts of my life, I was not being my authentic self. And I thought to myself, like when I said when I turned 40, I made a few changes, not just Yarn Rebels, because I was like, I have to be authentically. It just doesn't feel good if you're not living in your own skin all the time. And I, was getting to the point where I was like, I don't want to do that because I can't be myself, or I don't feel right there. So it did change me to grab the bull by the horns and say, you know what? If you don't like me, that's okay. We can not be friends. That's okay. And I'm very lucky. I have a very supportive family. I have a really great group of friends. I feel fairly confident in my life, and I'm just generally happy. I'm a happy person. I have, like I said, with having a lot of loss and trouble throughout my life, it gives me a different outlook on things and makes me realize that life's too short. So I don't want to not be me.
Do you feel like you are living your dream right now?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, but I also truthfully believe in manifestation and intentions, and I have worked hard. So I hustle, because I believe in dreams and making your dream come true, but you can't just have it sit on your lap. So in 2025, I made my business plan and my vision board, and I put on organizations I wanted to work with, jobs that I wanted to go after, or ideas, and I have made them all come to fruition. And you are one of them.
Thank you. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I find that very often people are intimidated to ask for their dreams to come true, because I've heard from so many people like, oh, I really wanted to be on your channel, but like I'm too shy to ask. And I was like, it makes my life easier, right? Like I don't have to look for anybody, you come to me.
Yeah. And I don't know, like maybe being loud or being myself, I have heard no a lot, or I have heard, quiet down. So rejection is not, if you were to say no, or if I get a no, it doesn't hurt my feelings. I'm just like, okay, cool. No, it's not. And that's why, like, even when I pitch myself, I'm like, here's my website, here's some reels, here's who I am. This is what we really are. So if we're not your jam, totally cool. Just so you know.
Well, so now that all of those dreams came true, what's next on your ambition list?
I want to grow the retreats. Right now we're just doing the 2 a year, and I know that there's room for more, and I know that people do want more. And especially once my goal in 2025 is to reach out to, I have a really good following in the knitting and crochet world, and I do have a decent craft following, but I really wanted to, like, my whole goal with Craft Coalition is to get more of the crafters involved in the Yarn Rebels. And I know I went back and forth on the name a few times just because, like, yarn's in the name, so naturally, but it's just a name. It's not, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't play. Like, there's lots of other things you can do with yarn. You can dye it, you can spin it, you can, so I sort of, try to stay away from the just yarn stuff. So my goal is to reach out to other crafters, and I'd like to do some jewelry wrapping class would be fun, I think. Yeah, anything. I'm like you. If you want to play with me and want to try to hang out with us, let's do something because it makes my life easier. Give me a call if you have an idea.
Yeah, and this is a good channel to make that call because I interview all kinds of different fiber artists and industry professionals. So if you guys watching this channel and you have an idea of what else Krystal can do, write a,
Yeah,
write a comment. Let's see what other ideas.
I love it.
Do you combine your love for beer with your love of crafting in the retreats or in the knit nights?
We do, but I also have a lot of rebels. My mom doesn't really drink. She will drink, but she's not really a drinker. And so for me, I am an occasional drinker or a social drinker, but I've also, everywhere we go, I make sure that there's non-alcoholic options. I make sure that there's coffee or tea for mom. So part of me incorporating the beer or the sort of brewery pub idea was just to drive home that this is who we are. Like, we're not going to be sitting at a tea party. We're going to be at the pub because we're loud and we're, together. We're getting up and we're looking at each other's projects and we're visiting with each other. And that doesn't really work in a tea house situation. So that was why I leaned into that for so long. But with Craft Coalition, I'm expanding it, and we're traveling more, and we're doing, like, every place is somewhere new. We have different coffee shops, and if you're a place that wants to host us or you think that we would fit for your vibe, also please comment, because there is a lot, but I'm always wanting to learn more and find more.
Well, you mentioned that you first started with going to yarn festivals. Is there a festival that like you're dreaming of going but you haven't been to yet?
Well, we've had Knit City prairies last year, so that was a pretty big deal for us here because otherwise you have to go to Montreal or Vancouver, which are great. So going to Knit City was pretty fun and was pretty awesome. Mom and I've always wanted to go to Rhinebeck. I think it's kind of everybody's dream visit. But another one that we've also chatted a lot about in our group and wanting to go to is the PEI,
Mhm.
because spinning PEI is wonderful, beautiful, and we all are Canadians, and we're all, like, big support Canada. So the PEI one is definitely on our list. Manitoba too. They're doing lots of great stuff now. Their Manitoba Fiber Festival, they are really pumping up the stuff over there.
I actually haven't heard of that one. I'll check it out.
You should, yeah, because it's right not far. Like, it's just up the road from, up the way, and they're really trying. They have a Friday night social night at a pub and good classes, and they're trying. It's great.
You learn from other rebels about like this yarn sourcing, the or like locally manufactured yarn,
It's
local buyers, like are they a source of information?
it's insane. That's truthfully, I think, what the community is for. In our community is because there's just so many, and it's very overwhelming, when you go to a yarn festival. And sometimes, we've talked about this, sometimes what happens is you just get paralyzed, so you shop on brand. You're like, Rose Hill, off I go. She's my girl. Or you are looking for something specific, so you go looking for your Surrey or whatever it is. Or you just don't buy anything because you just get so overwhelmed. So what we like is that, we'll always go for lunch after and show each other stuff so that, and then being, oh, now they've knit a sweater and now we can actually see it. So a lot of us, we're also lucky, like in our group we have a yarn dyer who hangs out with us, so she gives us the inside scoop of like, you want that color, well here's why and what's the deal about it. So it is 100% a great source of inspiration. And what I really love is because we are so age diverse, like we literally have 20-year-olds and 70-year-olds, so the knowledge, we also have people from other countries, like one of our ladies is from Germany, and so she brings with her all of her German knowledge and she knits German patterns and then whips out like it's insane, but it is so inspiring.
What's the best way for the community who is listening to this interview, or like, your community, to get involved in your company?
So the newsletter is always great. I write the newsletter for you guys, and that's where everything comes out first and where you can find everything. I am really proud because I did launch a website this year. So when I started, I had a Shopify. It was good enough. It gave me a website and we sold some merch. But this year with us growing, I knew that I needed a good solid website. So worked really hard on that. Things they don't teach you when you start a small business. Oh, you will be an accountant. You will be a web designer. So I created the website. It has all the information about the retreats. You can sign up for the newsletter there. You can learn about the Craft Coalition. With the Craft Coalition, a bonus on the website is that we have a portal that is private. So all of the members of the Craft Coalition, all of their private, or they get all the extra special stuff inside the portal. So each month, along with like with the coffee chat, then Jolene provided, documentation and a template and all this stuff. So all that stuff is in the Craft Coalition portal, and you get access to that too. So yeah, my website, yarnrebels.com.
Is there like ever days when you question yourself why you're not teaching or why you're not nursing, and why did you decide to start this company?
Um, there is, but I believe everything happens for a reason, and a reason or a season is kind of what I say. And right now, with my daughter being in grade 10, and mom getting a little bit older, me trying to get my health a little under control, the reason that I'm doing Yarn Rebels right now is because I'm supposed to be. So I miss the kids, but I have actually partnered. One of my goals was to partner with a local organization. They're called Rad Dads. So they used to be punk rockers, and then they had kids and had to grow up. So they created an organization to do fun things with their kids still that were still cool. So I knew I wanted to work with them. So we're actually having a Father's Day event called Tie One On, and it's string art
Oh, that's so
at a
cool.
brewery.
That,
So I'm gonna fill up some joy with the kids for that. And yeah, I think I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
well, Krystal, it was such a joy to chat with you. I really enjoyed our conversation, and maybe one time I'll get to attend one of your retreats. That sounds
I want you to
fun.
come up here. There's so much for you to do and see, and we'll take you around. Oh, we'd have so much fun with you.
That sounds really fun. That sounds
Yes.
exciting. And I
Yes.
really know a lot of people from Alberta, so I'll bring
Exactly.
some rebels with me.
Exactly. You don't need a retreat to come. You tell me when you're coming and I'll make it happen.
That sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And if you are trying back with your mom, let me know and I'll meet you.
Okay. It is our goal. It's our 5-year plan. One of my first goals was that I really wanted to. Mom and I wanted to take me to Nashville. She had been before, so we actually turned. She turned 60 and I turned 40 in the same year. So that was my first goal. I was like, if I can get Yarn Rebels to pay for our Nashville trip, and then I was able to do that. So now, if I can get Yarn Rebels to pay for Rhinebeck, then we're good.
Definitely we'll meet there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being my guest today. It was really
Thanks for having
lovely.
me. It was great to chat.
Thank you.